Things that are mutter and people have had a minhag to prohibit it. You can't be matir their minhag to say, you're allowed to do it, because they think that they're osir, and they're going to come to a mezalzel in other isurim, and they'll think that you could be matir that as well. So remember, Rav Yosef, there was a community which were taking challah from rice-based loaves. And Rav Yosef said, oh no, take a non-Kohen, let them eat it in front of their face. I thought the principle is, says Abaya, that you can't be matir somebody's minig directly in front of them because they're going to be matir other isurim. Amr lo. So Rav Yosef responded, "V'lav mi'itmar Allah." Didn't we learn? Who did it mean? Amr kusoy, kusim, right? The Shomron, they had converted because of lions, and now they weren't trustworthy, so they're not really Jews. Kusoy by time, milsa. So why are we not matir in front of them? Because they're going to perform other isurim. They're going to think that other isurim are permitted. So So, but when you matir this guy, when you said let a person, a non-Kohen, eat this challah in front of them, these are Amei Aretz too. They're not going to know any better. They're going to think other things will be permitted. So, Amar Vashi Chazina, we see, Ruben Oiriz Achli, if the majority of people of this community eat rice, so Lo Nechla Zarba Fine, then they should not be matir a non-Kohen to eat this challah. Because Dilma Michtaka Torah's challah minayin. Remember, there's no grain in this community. It's China. There is no wheat. They're only making bread out of rice. If they don't continue to take challah, they're going to forget the whole din of hafrashas challah. Reuben Doganachli, but if this is a community that eats wheat or grain, then nichla zarba par. Then yes, in that case, we should have a non-Kohen eat this quote-unquote challah, because it's worse problems. Here, you have grain that absolutely has to have challah taken from it, made out of wheat or the chamesha samini. And if they think that rice flour, which is really potter from challah, they'll give challah from the rice to potter the chiyuv, right? Vice versa. They'll lafushim achiv al aptur, which either way won't work. Gufa. This was the statement of Abaya. In general, a thing is permitted, but there was a group of people that had a minhag to prohibit. So, we said you can't be matir directly in front of them if they've been, keeping a certain prohibition, because we said it's going to lead to them being lax or think that other isurim can be permitted. We're not talking about regular Jews. We're talking about kusi. What? We're not worried about other people. Vatanya. Two brothers can take a bath together. However, in the town of Kovel, they had a minhag not to do that. So it's normally a permitted thing, and when it's not a problem with snius or here avera. But in Kovel, they were machmer on themselves a chum. Umaisa b'Yehuda v'Hillel Bonov. Yehuda v'Hillel Bonov from Gamliel. Yehuda and Hillel, the sons of Gamliel. Sharachzu shneim kecha b'Kovel. They took a bath together in Kovel, even though we say in Kovel there was a minhag not to. The laws are the whole town talked about them. Amru, we never saw them. The Nishmat Hill v'yatzel beis achitzon. Hillel went into the outer house. He didn't want to say directly to them, because of this din, that we don't want to be, we're not permitted to be matir directly bifneihem. And we see this as an example of this. Then, yoitzim bekurdiksin b'Shabbos. The halacha is you could go out with slippers on Shabbos. However, yoitzim bekurdikskin b'Shabbos b'biri. In the town of Biri, they had a minhag not to. U'ma'aseh Yehuda v'Hillel b'nei from Gamliel sheyotzu bekurdkisim b'Shabbos b'biri. Yehuda and Hillel, the sons of Gamliel, went out with slippers in Biri. The laws of Abdina, the whole town, were whispering, Ushmatu, they took off the slippers. Unasoru lavdeya. But they didn't turn around to tell the people of Kovel that, really you're permitted. The Yoshvin al Safsai Nochim b'Shabbos. You can sit on goyish benches these are benches where they sell merchandise on. And sometimes we didn't buy things from going because we were choshed that they were doing some kind of chshad, magic or Zara, whatever. But in Akko, it was a minhag not to. Rav Shimon Gamliel himself sat on one of these benches. The laws of Alav Kol Medina, and they were all, the whole Medina was in uproar. So he nishvat al gabi karka, he sat on the ground, rather than saying v'lo ratzalom ela mutar matem. And bnei Medina sayam nami. So the more answers, this was also, the kasha is, I thought you said only kusim, these were regular Jews, that the same din applies. So the more says, yeah, they might be regular Jews, but bnei Medina sayam nami. They lived overseas, Jews, and therefore kivan de lo shchichi rabbanan gabayu. There weren't a lot of rabbanim there, so kakusim damu. They're unlearned. They're amei haaretz, and if you're matir to them directly, they'll be matir other isurim. Bishma safsayim nochrim. So I understand the problem. The benches of goy mishum de Mexican mekka chumemkar. It looks like you're doing. If you're sitting there, it looks like you're doing business on Shabbos. It's a chshad. If you sit on it, you might be doing business with them on Shabbos. So that I understand why there's a prohibition. Because nami. What's the problem with wearing these slippers? Dilmer mishpalfin, because they're going to fall off. I'm going to carry them. So that's why there was a reason for a certain community to be machmir. In my time alone. What was the problem where in these communities there was a custom that brothers did not take a bath together? Kiditan. They followed the following brayso. Imakol adam roiches. Person could take a bath with anybody. Chutz me aviv, not his father. V'chamiv, his father-in-law. Ubal imo, his stepfather. Ubal achoisoi, his brother-in-law, right, the husband of his sister. In all these cases, because of the closeness of the relatives, there's hirhur in his heart, and he's going to come to hear Avera with Noshim, maybe men as well. Rabbi Yehuda matir ba'aviv, they covered aviv. Rabbi Yehuda allowed you to bathe with your father because he might need help in the bath, and therefore that's part of covered aviv. V'uadin labalimo, and the same for a stepfather. V'asu inu v'gazru b'shnei achim mishum balachoisoi. They made a gzeira that they don't allow two brothers to bathe because of balachoisoi, which is like a brother. So it's like a low plug. No brothers, whether brothers or brother-in-laws, it's all the same. Tana. And that's the halacha Shulchan Aruch brings in Even HaEzer. You can bathe with everybody, but not with aviv, chamav, balimo, balachoisoi. Then it says, Achshav, minik parshu chen makbidim kol kach, mishum sheholchim b'merchatz b'mechnasayim. People would wear pants in the merchatz, or shorts maybe. Tana Talmud lo yirchatzim rabbo. A Talmud should not bathe with his Rebbe. However, in Rabbo Tzarech lo mutter. There's always a problem in Los Angeles going to the mikveh, Erev Yom Kippur. We only had one or two mikvahs. And you inevitably would run into your rebellion. It was that's the way it was.
There was a problem like that in New York too, but it was.
Yeah. No, but for example, there was a mikveh in the back of Rabbi Halbersham's Stiebel on 3rd Street. You know, the one that's across the street from the car wash. That was the only male mikveh. I remember when I was 13, 14, I was already about tefillah, and we were told to go to the mikveh, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. You're talking about 1969. That was the only mikveh in Los Angeles. So Erev Yom Kippur, the whole town was there. Okay. Kiyas Rabbi Rachana Achal Dayisra. Dayisra is chaylev that comes from part of the fat that sits on the stomach. And this is permitted. There were different minhagim. In Eretz Yisrael, they permitted it. In Bavel, they assered it. All Gabe Rav Avira Saba. So Rav Avira, the elder, the Rabba Braid Ravuna, and Rabba the son of Ravuna, came into his home. Kiva the Chazinu, Rabbi Archana saw that they came in, he quickly kasiminayu. He hid the fact that he was eating this chaylev. Also, Labaya, but they figured out what he was doing, and they went and told Abaya. Amar lahu. Abaya told them, Shavin choki kusoy. You know what? He treated you like kusoin, because he could say it's permitted, but since they were noyeg lechumra, he knew the halacha of iyatar shalatir bifneya. He can't just say, "Oh, I hold it's mutter," because we say you're not allowed to do that. If the people you're talking about are kusim, and if they're not kusim, you could just say, "I'm matir," because it's only the kusim or ami aretz who's going to make a mistake and perhaps perform, take a vaday iser and be matir. But these Talmidei Chacham were certainly not kusoim. However, Rabbi Bar Chana Leslie Hadisnan, and Rabbi Bar Chana also did not hold to the following Mishnah of Nois Alav Chumrei Makom Shiyatz Misham Chumrei Makom Shalach L'Sham. What about the fact, right? We learned in our Mishnah that you're supposed to take the chumras of the place that you left and the places that you came. Well, the place that he left didn't have the chumrah, but the place that he came had the chumrah. So I thought it says in our Mishnah that you're supposed to take the chumras of the place that you visit. How could he be matir this chayla? Amr Abaye Animili. When do we say all these dinim that you have to have the chumras of both? That's me Bavel Bavel. If you're traveling in cities within Bavel, if you're traveling within cities Eretz Yisrael, or Inami mi Bavel Eretz Yisrael, or if you're traveling from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, then you have to take the chumras of Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael Bavel alone. But let's say you have a heter in Eretz Yisrael, and you come to Bavel, you find that there's chumras there, you don't have to take it on. Because kiven danan kaifin luhu. Bavel was subservient to the Pesach in Eretz Yisrael. So Avdina Kavasai, we do like Eretz Yisrael. However, Rav Ashi Amar Afilu Teim Eretz Yisrael Bavel, that even someone goes from Eretz Yisrael Bavel, you should also take the chumras. When if he's going to move to Bavel, he doesn't have in mind to go back. But if he has mind to go back, then he doesn't have to take the chumras of the Oso Malka. And Rav Baruch Hana died to Laksar Hava. That's why he came from Eretz Yisrael where it was permitted to eat the chaylev. And since his mind was to go back, he could continue to eat the chaylev. But Rav Baruch Hana, who was eating his chaylev, told his sons, B'ni, loy soicha loy b'fanai v'loy shal loy b'fanai. This chaylev, you are not allowed to eat. Not in my presence or without my presence. I came from Eretz Yisrael. I saw Rabbi Yochanan himself eat this chaylev. Kedai Rabbi Yochanan spochela b'fon of the shaloi b'fon. So you can be soymech on Rabbi Yochanan both in his presence and not in his presence. So that's why I am soymech, because I saw him. I'm soymech on him whether he's in my presence or not. However, ata, you, my children, lo ra'isa also, you did not see Rav Yochanan Zakir with your own eyes. Therefore, lo soichal, bein b'fona bein shaloi, whether you're in front of me or not in front of me. However, uplika didei adidei. But there's another Rav Yochanan, he seems to be arguing with himself. Amar Rav Yochanan, sachli Rav Yochanan ben Elazar, Rav Yochanan ben Elazar spoke to me, Pamachas nechnasni, achar Rav Shimon ben Rav Yossi ben Lakunya Lagina. I followed Rav Shimon ben Rav Yossi into a garden. V'notal sfichei kru, on Shemitah, after the period of time. Remember where we said that once there's no more food in the field for wild animals, you have to be mevayer everything that's in your house. So a cabbage that just grew naturally, you didn't see this field. That's called a sfiach. So they took the sfiach, this wild growth cabbage during Shemitah, he ate it, gave it to me. My sons, b'fanai echol. As long as you're in my presence, you can eat it. Shalom b'fanai lo yisachol. But when you're not with me, you can't. You don't have rishus. Why? Ani shor isi Rav Shimon ben Yochai she'achal. I actually saw Rav Shimon ben Yochai eat it in my own lifetime. So kedai Rav Shimon ben Yochai l'smoch ala b'fanav v'shlo b'fanav. I relied on that, therefore, to eat it whether I was in his presence or not. But you, who did not see Rav Shimon ben Yochai, but you're in my presence, who did see Rav Shimon ben Yochai, b'fanai echol, shaloi b'fanai lo yisachol. Okay. What's this case, my Rav Shimon? Well, where does Rav Shimon ben Yochai weigh in? The Tanya, Rav Shimon Oimer, kol asfichin asurin, all wild growth, various vegetables that are growing on their own in the garden. You didn't plant them there; they just grew. The wind brought the seeds, or however they were brought. You can't eat them. Chutz misfichei kru, except for this wild cabbage. She'ein kayotze behen b'yer kaseh. There's no example of the kruv like in a field, and therefore they did make a gzeira because they're not similar to other vegetables, and therefore you're permitted to eat them just like you can eat fruit growing from a tree wildly. You didn't plant it. You're allowed to eat that during Shemitah. So they compare the Svichei Kruv to that. That's Reb Shimon. Chachamim Oimrim, Kol HaSvichin Asurin. They're all Asur, including the Kruv. The Tarvayu, Alibid Rabbi Kiva. Reb Shimon Chachamim have a machlokas.
They only also during the Shemitah year.
During the Shemitah year.
Yeah.
Correct. During Shemitah. Yeah,
Not the whole time.
It's not a Isser Zmani. It's not a permanent. It's not like Orla. The fruits in the first 3 years. No, you're correct. It's only Shemitah that you can.
Shemitah.
Correct. Now remember, once the fruits in your field are gone, well, once the wild stuff in the field, except for the kruv, are gone, and for the wild animals can't eat it, so you have to destroy whatever you took in your house. You have to get rid of. You have to be mavayir that, and then you have to take a vidui meiser and say biarti hakodesh min habayis, including that material. So now there were some things you could eat if you found wild fruits growing in a tree that you could eat during the Shemitah year. So that wasn't prohibited. But the other stuff was prohibited, and they weren't around because you destroyed it. So this machlokes between Reb Shimon and the Chachamim is they're arguing Rabbi Kiva. The time it says Hein lo nizra. Well, what are we supposed to eat? We didn't see the lo dasafas was saying there's nothing to gather. Rabbi Kiva achashen zoyrin. If there's no seeds being planted, so where are they gathering from? So the wild growth is also usher. So if you gather that, it's also going to be usher. Now, then what's the machlokes? Are svichei kruv, even though they're different than all the other vegetables in the field, they answer it because of the other vegetables? The Chacham say yes. Rab Shimon Sover loy gazrin on svichei kruv to svichei dalma. No, the svichei kruv are permitted. We don't make exer for the svichei kruv. Okay. We said if you come from a place that they do work to a place that they don't do work, so you're given the chumras, right? So bishma holech mimakom sha'oisim. So I understand you come from a place where they did work Erev Pesach, and you go to a place l'makom she'ein oisim. So there's a isser malacha. So I understand nois alav chumrei makom sha'aluch l'sham. So you get the chumras of the place where you went, va'ayishana adamet ne'amachokes v'lo la'evet, and therefore he's not fighting against the stream. He's doing, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, and lo levit, and he doesn't do the work. Ella, rather the Gemara wants to know, when it's said in the Mishnah, if you come from a city where they don't do work, and you go to a city where they do work, we say, you should not go against what's done in Rome. Now, in Rome here, they work. Now, what are you going to say? The Nevit? You can tell them to work? How Amrit? What about the law of nois alav chumrei makom shalach l'sham chumrei makom she'atz misham? At the end of the Mishnah, it said, basically, you get stringencies of both places. If you have a stringency in your place and you land in a place that has, you got to take both. So why are they making him take both here? Amar Abaya aresha. It's only going on the ratio. Ayishad the mastis and aresha coin, which is it's only on the first part that it's only that one part. If you go to a city that doesn't work, then you have to not work. But vice versa doesn't apply. However, Rav Amar no, lo'olam ha'sefer goes on both. V'hachi komer. Ein bezumim they shina machloikes. When you go to a place that's working, and you came from a place that didn't work, and you work, there's not a shina machloikes. Michael Amrit, what does he mean? What does he mean by that? It means haroya, because if somebody is coming from a place where they did not work, and he goes to a place where they work, and let's say he follows his own custom from the place that he left which is not to work, and he sits around, doesn't work, that doesn't necessarily mean people think he's avoiding malacha, right? Haroya oimer malacha surah, no. Meimer amri kama batlani avi b'shuka. A lot of people stay home and battle and don't work. There's no raya or maybe no work came to him. So that's why it's not a violation of a machloikes, because people won't think there's a machloikes, even though he's not doing like the minhag hamakom. By staying lazy and not doing anything, it's not clear that he's violating the machloikes of working, because maybe nobody brought him a job today. Period. Yeah. We're going to talk about prohibitions of Yom Tov Sheni. Yom Tov Sheni. So, I know how to calculate today, so it's not a sofek. So b'yishuv law of dinon. I don't do malacha because of this even though I know that really you could work today, because I've calculated. So this will do tomorrow. So tomorrow, Daf Yomi is at 8:00. And then we will start the Navi Shir. Those that are on the Navi Shir can just stay, and we'll wait for everybody else to join, and I'll come and get Susan.